Are we live? 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 That one was ugly, guys. That one was ugly. The Devils fall to the Anaheim Ducks. Final score of 4-1. I don't know. I guess there wasn't another empty netter at the end there. So yeah, it was 4-1. Um, the Devils fall to a record right now. Let me just pull it out. I think they're 9-4-0. Um, it was a pretty ugly West Coast road trip. You saw all the defensive breakdowns. You saw all the defense crumbling with Brett Pesce out. You saw some shoddy goaltending play on that road trip. I thought Allen kind of rebounded tonight after what was a pretty rough start. But that was not that was a pretty embarrassing loss for the Devils there. Thank you all for tuning in and joining us here after that ugly loss for the Devils. I'm your host, Ryan Novozinsky, joining you as always from my home studio right here in Ewing, New Jersey. Um, Again, where I watch, and we have more people coming in the stream now, where I watch the Devils lose final score 4-1. It was Jack Hughes who scored for the Devils, and for the Ducks, it was Beckett Seneca, Frank Vetrano, Cutter Gauthier, and Chris Kreider. Um, so yeah, let's kind of dive right into my notes here. I think that the biggest takeaways from that game, ugly defensive breakdowns. You had, more sloppy D zone play. You had a lot of odd man rushes, a lot of breakaways for Anaheim. Terrible all around. Not great effort for the. I mean, look, they kind of came back at the end there. Jack gets the goal, and they kind of ride the momentum there. Allen makes a couple key saves. But just not enough. The Devils are, they have a lot of injuries right now, and that's fine. But it's things should not crumble like this. The Devils should not look this out of sync. Whenever Brett Pesce goes down, I thought another ugly night for Nemec as well. He's been inconsistent of late. Um, he had that awful seam pass to Jack in the D zone there, nearly handed a goal right to Chris Kreider. What was the other goal he messed up on? It was the breakdown on the first goal, the Beckett Seneca goal. Him and Chalowski, that was not great. But let's just dive into the comments immediately here, because I mean that's pretty much like the Devils had a lot of games in this road trip. I feel like where it was just like burn the tape, burn the tape, burn the tape. Um, Definitely that Colorado game where they give up an 8 spot. Definitely the San Jose game they want to leave in the past, and then this game tonight. The defensive breakdowns have just been god awful for the Devils. So let's go right into the comments. Tyler Seba makes a great point here. It says, "What more does Gritsuk need to do to prove to be put with Jack and Bratt?" Look, I thought tonight Grits was he showcased that passing vision a little bit more tonight. We've seen obviously that in spurts early on this season. You've seen that on some of those early assists to Connor Brown when those two were gelling. That was a fun thing to see. But yeah, tonight of all nights, like how are you gonna keep Gritsuk on that third line there? How are you gonna keep him on that third line? That's just I don't see the logic there. I know that Keefe kind of tweaked for the lines there at the end, and that's fine. He needs to be with Jack and Brad. I think it's time. I think it's time. This team needs a spark. This team is in flux. They need to put him with Jack and Brad. Zach Chin says, "I want to forget about this game more than I wanted to forget about the Colorado game." Yeah, this was an ugly one. Look, the Ducks are a much improved team this year. There's no doubt about that. And some of their young guys, I mean, God, Beckett Seneca is crazy. All over the ice tonight, making defensive stops, and even on his goal, made a nice little defensive play in the Devil's zone right there, and turns around to make a nice play in the O zone. But yeah, definitely want to forget this one because that team, while improved, you're better than them. Zach Chin also says, really hoping Glass Brown and maybe even Dadonov are back from Montreal. We'll see. I was going to mention too the Montreal factor. The Devils play them, next game at home. They have them. They're one of the best teams in the league. If not I think record wise, they might be the best. Maybe Colorado has them edged out. Um, but it's them, and then they have Pittsburgh after that, who's a surprise success story to start the year too. So things are not going to get easier for this Devils team. If you gotta prove, you gotta step on the gas, and you gotta have some of these injuries, guys coming back from injury as well. Because the defense, or you have to figure out the defensive structure because it has just been really bad. And I think it's getting to the point where maybe I don't know who you take out and who you put in place of him. Maybe it's Casey, but Nemec might have to take a seat at some point. Some of the mistakes there have been really bad. Lou says this is embarrassing for the Devils. It sure is, and Lou's watching all the way from Peru. So how ridiculous is that? You're going to let Lou down, who's watching all the way from Peru? Ridiculous. For a very frustrating game if you're a Devils fan. Alex Walsh said, "Will our goalies ever be in sync, or will one always suck?" Allen has not had a great road trip here. Markstrom obviously had the great game last game. Like you said, it just seems like when one is on, the other one's off. That's kind of the risk you take when you have two 35-year-old goalies who at their ceiling can be really great, but have shown to go through cold stretches in the past as well. Damien from the Land Down Under says, ugh, that was such a frustrating game. SMH. It sure was. A lot of defensive breakdowns. Tyler Seba says, Novo, what did I do? What happened? I like mute my notifications during this show, so I never know. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, shoot. I said the NJ Devils fall to the Dicks 4-1. That is a spelling error. Can I even edit this now? I don't know if I can. I think I'm just gonna leave it now. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you for everyone's pointing it out now. That's hilarious. Gerald York, let's move on. Gerald York says it's time to put either Mercer or Gritsuk with Jack and Brad. My choice would be Gritsuk because I think the team needs a spark. Mercer's not a bad option too. Underrated one-timer there. But put anybody with him because put any of those two with him, and I'm fine with it. I would rather see Gritsuk because I think that he's proven that he belongs in that top six. He should not be playing on the third line. But yeah, you gotta shake things up like that. Alex Walsh says Nemec or Simone is toast once Pesci returns. I'm guessing you say, and he also says adds here Simone is toast once Pesci and Kobe come back. He needs to I don't even know what you do with him at this point. I guess you try to elevate his trade value as much as you can. And he's off to a good point wise, he's off to a good start this year, and there's no doubt about that. There's no denying that. And I think just a couple days ago we were talking about how this is a guy who's off to a good start to the year. But yeah, this game especially highlighted the ugliness that you get when with the player too, with Nemec too. The breakdown on that first goal, which was terrible, and then the near disastrous giveaway that he had when he was trying to sauce a seam pass to Jack in his own D zone, and Kreider pounces all over it, nearly gives Kreider. I don't remember if Kreider pounced on it, but the Ducks got it, and Kreider almost gets the what seemed like a surefire goal there. Lou was making fun of me for my tweet. Yeah, okay, I said Dicks. Okay, sorry about that. That was pretty good. Misspelling. You guys see it sometimes. I'll have these, just kind of brain fart moments where I'm just, I accidentally will tweet like the letter M or something like that, or some sort of. I promise you, I guess I'm not the greatest technology guy. And there you go. There, that was. And look, the U and the I are next to each other on the keyboard, so you got to give me a break there. So it's a risky name for the Ducks. Thomas Gannay says, sound the alarms. This is troubling. Not a good road trip. Look, they're once these guys come back from injury again. I don't think besides I guess what's it called? Brett Pesci, who's going to be out for at least a month here. They said. I don't think these other two are going to be out, too much longer. But they sure could use them, man. The team has crumbled in the absence of Connor Brown, of Brett Pesci, of Cody Glass. You need to get some of those guys back in the lineup. Hopefully they're not out much longer. Alex Walsh said Shimon. Okay, we already got that. Zach Chin says, really hope this game doesn't affect the team mentally too. As a fan, it's easy to get frustrated, but I have a short memory for the players. These can be crushing and bleed into the next. No doubt. I mean, I would just say I don't really know last year, but I'm just speaking for myself, like I feel like the Devils, man, no, I can't even say that. Because I feel like that, when they went cold in that 20, even that 22-23 season, they went really cold. Um, these ones are alarming. Like the defensive zone play, like the number of goals they've given up on this trip alone. I would have to look at the exact number of it, but you just look at the goals against numbers there, and it's very alarming. So you wonder if that defensive zone play is starting to get into their heads a little bit. They need to call some sort of, like Bradshaw and Sheldon Keefe need to spend the entire flight home figuring out how to fix this defensive structure issue, because the breakdowns have just been tremendous. You see the odd man rushes that Anaheim was able to generate tonight. You see again, the breakdown on that Seneca goal. Like, I'll keep going back to that. That was terrible. Like, that was like dog water, man. That was like, Chalowski, what are you doing there? Nemec, how are you that out of play there? I do not know. Alex Walsh just ticks 4-1. It was an honest misspelling. Sorry about that. Luke FYB says playing grits with Lamico and Palat is definitely not a winning strategy. Yeah, it was weird line deployment tonight. I just wasn't a big fan of that. Keefe is a big matchup based guy, but I don't know what you're trying to do with that. Walt2856 says Grits' fingerprints were all over the game. He looked, yeah, 100%. I mean, I thought that this was, he didn't. I don't think that he got, because did he assist that? Because no, I know Mercer had the primary assist there. Yeah, he wasn't even on the ice, I don't think, for that Jack goal. So he didn't get the assist, but I feel like there were so many high danger chances tonight, and I'd have to look at like the numbers and the puck tracking metrics and stuff like that. But I feel like there were so many of the the dangerous chances the Devils had were going to be assisted by Arseny Gritsuk. Like that's how great his vision was tonight. If the Devils had just potted those goals, he would have maybe a couple of assists tonight. I thought that his vision was awesome, and his passes have been crisp too. He's so cerebral, and he's patient with it, which I didn't think we'd see that from him, but he's been excellent at that early on. He needs to be promoted to that top line. He needs to be promoted to that top line this time, because once he goes with Jack and Brat there, I think you'll start to see the scoring touch too, just because those guys can find you in ridiculous ridiculous spots in the ozone too. So we'll see what happens there. Beachmaster says that Seneca goal was sick. It sure was, and the defensive play that he had in their D zone too. That was, he's a really good player, man. I saw that Daniel Amwat quote tweeted a tweet earlier, that said that basically the Devils never really had a chance to get him in the draft, but because the Ducks, at the time that felt like a reach, right? I think they went third when the Devils had the 10th pick. Man, that would have been cool. I know the Devils interviewed him. When they scouted him. So that would have been a nice little fit here. Walt 2856 says Timo Nico Nason needs to happen. That seems like the logical next choice, right? And then move Gertzog to the top, and the top line, boom, you're cooking with fire now. You're cooking with gas. Let's go. Dime Season says Keefe needs to bag skate these boys till they fix their mindset. I'm sure they'll be off tomorrow because probably a little travel day and getting back from the West Coast. But yeah, Tuesday is probably going to be an intense day of practice. I will keep you guys posted, because we'll go. I'll be at practice. Do we do live? Do we do live from practice? No, I feel like you guys won't pay. Well, I don't know. Like, will you guys tune in at a Tuesday at like 11 a.m.? I don't know. It'll probably be more like 1 p.m. Would you guys do that if I went live after practice? Let me know in the comments. Walt says Brat Hughes Mercer. Yeah, no, again, like you just got to switch up this top six and try to get a different look there. The lines that Keefe is trying to deploy now have just certainly not worked. This West Coast road trip was very sloppy. Dadanov, Glass, and Brown could be a line. Heh. Yeah, once they're all back. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that's probably the joke there. Noah says, I think we can add the Ducks to one of those teams the Devils struggle with. Do you think being back home gives them some juice? The Devils are a much better home team this year than they were last time I covered them. I remember they, like Lindy always talked about, like they tried to play, with too much risk at home, and they were trying to be a little too flashy at home, and that maybe gave them the jitters. Like that was like a number of years ago. But this year they are they undefeated at home. Yeah, they definitely are. Because they won 8 games. So yeah, I mean, look, like that's. I think that coming home will give them some juice. Let's see how it works. I know that some teams can struggle once they get back from the West Coast. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I just know that they play some really two really tough opponents. That Montreal you thought would be good this year. Pittsburgh you kind of wrote off as probably being a crappy team this year. And now they have like 18 points this year already or something ridiculous like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But you know they better hope that they get the home bump after that. With that schedule coming up, Lou says one thing I did like was Mercer defending Nico. Yeah, no, that was a good little sequence there. It's something we've been complaining about for years, but no one stood up for our stars. I feel like that's kind of shifted this year. I feel like you're finally seeing that a little bit. And heck, you even saw that in the preseason when Nico's defending Jack. So it's like, maybe that's happening. Damien says, just admit it, Novo, you spelled dicks on purpose. I most certainly did not. The I and the U are right next to each other on the keyboard. But I might have to because this tweet's getting some traction here. So maybe I will do that in the future. What are the other like teams that are one misspelling away from being profanity? Is there any other team that's like that? I'd have to look. Let's just look at like kind of the standings here. This is such a stupid thing for me to be looking up right now on the stream. I don't think there's any. Yeah, there's definitely not. So yeah, but I might have to do that going forward. Walt says too many east-west passing, trying to stretch it this game. No doubt, no doubt. You saw a lot of risky passes, especially there at the end. And the Devils, I thought, had a good little push at the end, but um, I mean, at the beginning, like that was just, and I think that created a lot of some of these giveaways created a lot of these odd man rushes as well. The Devil, I mean, they're plus minus like on this trip. Like I want to see what it is the past couple games. It probably looks like a golf leaderboard or something like that. They've given up so many so many errant passes that lead to these odd man rushes that lead to breakaways. A lot of breakaways for the Ducks tonight that have led to these prime scoring opportunities for the team or for the opposing team. And Walt says right here, odd man rushes were out of control this road trip. They sure were. Dime Season says, what are your thoughts on Lamico so far? I guess he's, he is what he is. You know what I mean? Like he kind of just is what he is. The Devils don't want Lamico to be in the lineup. Get these guys healthy, get your guys back healthy, and then this team could be a lot better. But Lamico, I don't think he's necessarily like I haven't seen like any game breaking mistake from him so far. But Keefe certainly doesn't really doesn't look to trust him all that much because he keeps cycling through the lines there, especially early on, and having limiting his ice time a little bit. We'd have to see exactly how many minutes he finished with this game, but it can't be that much. Let's see, time on ice leaders. Lamico was the third lowest, only edging out Glendening and Hallinan. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that there's much trust there. Let's see. Alex Walsh says, has anyone else noticed Luke Hughes' shots haven't been getting through traffic so many? Yeah, I noticed that too. And it's so interesting because like he has a shot first mentality lately. He's getting a lot of minutes. And maybe his individual like shot attempts are up. I'd have to kind of look at them. I know last game they were like 5. But a lot of them not getting through traffic. You're totally right there, Alex. Long snapper Adam says, I was at the game. Nice, Adam. How's that arena? I've never been. I was at the game. Nason looked lost. Hamilton looked slow, out of position, and soft. Not a great night from Nason. And after a game against LA, which I thought that line was gelling in every period except for the third. So maybe he just rode that cold streak from the third, and that ended up being a disastrous night for him. Let's see. Walt says, yeah, he forced that last shot, leading to, okay. You guys are just talking in the chat. Beachmaster says live practice would be cool. Maybe we do that. If you guys would, if you guys could guarantee that we would have a lot of people in the stream, then I'm more than willing to do that. Walt says that tweet was a Freudian slip. Again, the U and the I are right next to each other. Unfortunate placement there, but yeah, I guess the Ducks are in more ways than one. A one misspelling, one letter misspelling from being profanity. Because if you replace the F with the D, which those are next to each other too, so the Ducks are just, oh man, I know what I'm doing next time they play the Ducks. I'm going to do the other thing. Um, Tyler Seba says, I think the math works out that we could trade Siegs when we activate Kobe. That's an interesting option. That's an interesting option. I know they like Siegenthaler. I know he's not off to the best start this year. I think there's a lot of pressure on him. I think a lot of that pressure will be alleviated once some of these other guys get back in the lineup. And he plays the left side too. So I don't know. I don't know. But that's certainly intriguing. I never thought about trading Siegenthaler. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure like with his cap hit, like that would be an interesting trade option. I'm sure a lot of teams would pounce all over that. Gerald York says when we had the goalie pull, when we had the goalie pulled, Luke threw that muffin on net. Such a bad decision. Yeah, definitely. And the Devils, I thought, created a good bunch of opportunities at the end there. But that one definitely was kind of a momentum killer. This guy asked, Jack Chin asked an interesting question. Sorry, Zach, I knew it was you, but I looked away from my screen for a second because I'm looking up the roster. If you played on this Devils team as currently constructed, which number would you wear? I would wear. That's a great question. Like I'm not kidding. My number in high school football was 67. Like I'm not even saying that because of the stupid 6'7" thing. But I don't know. Like that was kind of like just like I was a much bigger boy back then. I was an offensive lineman, if you could believe it. I don't know what number I would wear. That's an interesting question. We'll just say we'll say that I will be. I would be number. I'd be 27 for some reason. No, I can't be 27 because Niedermeyer. Oh my god! Of course I did, but that was my other favorite number growing up. I would be. I'd be. Gosh, this is a tough question. You're stopping me. I'd be 17 whenever Nemeth gets traded. There you go. Okay, everyone's answering that in the chat too. Good question. Good question there, Zach. Let's see. As much of a trap as the Ducks are for typo, no team has it worse than Nashville. How about that SNL skit last night? Hockey getting a little love there. That was good stuff. SNL's usually like, not that funny anymore, but that was that was a good one. I laughed out loud at that one. Especially hockey getting a little shout out there. Gerald York says the only problem is Sieg's lefty, Covey's a righty. Yeah. And there's so much right shot defenseman depth in this team. It's a logjam right now. So your chances are it's going to be one of those right shot guys that gets traded and not a lefty. Alex Wall, yes, great point, Alex. Shout out Brendan Dillon, our best D-man this year. Decision making has been good, and he looks faster. Not only does he look faster, I feel like his offensive game is improving as well. I feel like he makes really good decisions in the O-zone out of nowhere this year. He has been a pleasant surprise for me this year because I didn't cover him last year, obviously. So this is my first year watching him on a regular basis. He has been awesome. And of course, like the end of the injury last year, like that's like that was really concerning because I know the Devils were really concerned about that. I know he was very concerned about that. You see the scar on his neck; it's like crazy. So he has been definitely a pleasant surprise. Poke Niner says, good game to the Devils. Ducks are indeed getting better, but definitely felt like the Devils were lacking a lot of focus and drive with the day's rest. That's the funny part too. Like the Devils for a lot of this game did control the offensive zone, and I thought they actually looked fine for a lot of portions of this game. They controlled pace. it's just that D zone play that just completely messes them up. And then that Allen, like that softy that Allen let in, I forget who scored it, but it was just like a ridiculous angle that he had there, sharp angle there for whoever scored that. Was the Gautier? Yeah, that was not good. Dosdale played yeah, that he goalied the crap out of them early on, especially that was no, the whole game. They only scored one goal. Um, that was he was really good tonight. Um, Zach Chin says Dylan was everywhere on that monster shift. I was trying to will a goal for him through my TV. Um, Not only that shift, but let's go back to last game for a second. Shout out to Dylan for managing. Um, he was on the ice for like a minute and a half or something like that. Not, it might have even been way longer than that. Um, with Luke Glendening's stick. So Dylan is a lefty and Glendening's a righty, and he has the righty stick and a stick that's much shorter than Dylan's stick. So shout out to him for you know surging through that. That was great. Luke FYB says, if Glass and Brown are back, you think Keefe goes back to Grits, Glass, Brown, or try something different? I thought that line was awesome, and I feel like when they were rolling, they that was, when the Devils were at their best, that line was at its best. Maybe they go back to it. I'd say the chances are good, but also like there's so many different factors now because Grits looks like a legitimate top six player. So I feel like you want to, the only part that I would say no to that line reuniting is the fact that, maybe Gritsuk finally gets that promotion and is kind of back up there. Um, yeah, he said Cutter. Don't know how I'll let that in. Yeah, that was a really bad softy goal. Poke Niner says, as a Ducks, we got Ducks fans in this stream. Thank you, Poke Niner, for joining us. We'll say as a Ducks fan, this felt like our third statement win of 3 games. Who'd the Ducks play the past couple games? I'm very curious because they really impressed me. I just looked up Ducks on Google and it showed me like ducks. It says ducks are a diverse group of waterfowl known for their webbed feet and short necks. I hate when that happens. It's like when I look up, sometimes I'll have to look up like the devil's staff, and like sometimes I'll just type in Google devil's staff, and like a devil's staff will come up. So it's like a pitchfork. Um, let's see who the Ducks play. Statement win for them against the Devils, obviously tonight. Red Wings 5-2, and then the Panthers to beat in a shootout. So yeah, good couple wins there for the Ducks, for sure. Let's see. Noah says tonight was such a rough one. I got excited thinking chill out. Oh man, might have scored another good game from him. Like the team, yeah. I don't know, man. Like Chalowski did have that pretty bad breakdown too on that first goal. Um, so and I get, like you said, almost scored there. So I guess you gotta he turned it around a bit, but he's another guy that I think the Devils are really excited to get out of the lineup. All due respect to him, and I thought too, like I thought, last game I was really impressed with what he did. So maybe this, look, he's a fringy kind of player. So let's see what he can do. He's never going to be uber consistent. Larry Blumenfeld, sorry, says didn't put much attention to this game. 3 games of 4 nights plus the last game on the coast had lackluster written all over it. I don't blame you. I wouldn't doubt. And this game's competing against. Actually, it's not competing against Sunday Night Football because that was such a blowout. Um, Here's an interesting factor that I think I should throw out there. The Washington Commanders, owned by the Devils owners, Josh Harris, and I think David Blitzer is like somewhat part of that too. But though it's not HBSC, um, they are terrible this year. Are we going to see ownership? I'm not saying the ownership is not involved, but I feel like ownership, like I'm not saying that at all. Don't get it twisted. Um, but are we going to see even more active? Like, are they going to put a lot of attention to the Devils and want them to really lean all into it? Because the Commanders have been such a disappointment this year. We'll see. We'll see about that. I just one thing I thought while I was scoreboard watching that game tonight. Poke Niner has dominated the chat. My friend Poke Niner, you should rejoin us occasionally. You're a blast, a Ducks fan in the chat. So I love this. Also, these refs were really quiet. Interesting, yeah. Very weird game for the refs. I agree. Let's see. Let's move on. I will say, Dime Season says, I will say, through all the ups and downs so far, I really love Keefe as a coach. I feel he does a really good job holding the team accountable, has a strong system. I agree, and I think the best part about Keefe, not only with the accountability and the intensity that you hear about a lot from players, it's the adjustments. He's a really good in-game adjuster. There's a reason you see like the Devils will go from like I saw the graphic last game where it's like the Devils go from like, you know, a ridiculously known low number, like 28th in the league, and like odd, odd man rushes, rush chances, everything like that in the first period. Then in the second period, they boom all the way up to like first. So the Devils come out slow, and you want them to come out a little faster in these games, but he's such a good in-game adjuster. Between the periods, he knows what buttons to press. So I've been really impressed in that regard from Sheldon Keefe. Zach Chin says also shout out to Dog and Timo for standing up for Nico after that hit. Really want to see more of that this season. I want to get back to the team that led the league in fighting penalty minutes for a bit last year. Yeah, great fight. We talked about that a little bit already, but that was a positive sign to see. Poke Niner says ownership meddling. I pray you don't get ownership meddling. Verbeek makes it hell for us Ducks. Um, who's the owner of the Ducks? Is it Artie Moreno? Because he's terrible. Oh no, it's Henry Samueli. I don't know who that is, but that's thank God you don't have the Angels ownership, I guess. Um, moving on, Washington is the oldest team in the league. The ownership will be looking for some positivity. They sure will. They sure will. Yeah. I knew that Verbeek was the GM, by the way. Poke Niner. I was just wondering who their ownership group was there. And then Artie Moreno. Like I'm not even. I'm like a as casual as you can get as a baseball fan, but like even I know that name is just being such a terrible owner. Noah says Washington. Yeah, definitely agree with you, Noah. There. So maybe they lean into the Devils and really push for them to be aggressive at the deadline here. Let's see. Viper says, I heard we lost the Dicks 4-1, huh? Yes, 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 Viper. You're late to the party there, pal. But yes, I had a really unfortunate misspelling there. Walt2856 says that week Keefe had extra work with Palat, Hughes, Bratt. Palat played well, and this week, that week, but he has fallen off since. Yeah, he sure has. I was impressed with that at practice too, because you saw again, like you said, like extra working that offensive zone, trying to generate opportunities and trying to get more cohesion on that line, and then it worked, and it worked. That was really some of the part of the surge at the end of that surge for that 8-game winning streak. Um, he's fallen off a cliff since then, and he has as many points as frickin' Jacob Markstrom does this year. I know we talk about these little things, and those little things were on full display. And when he was on that line, that's fine. The forechecking's fine, and everything like that. But at some point, you have to have more points than your freaking goalie if you're making $6 million a year. Simple as that. Let's see. Poke Nutter says LOL. Viper says LMAO. Poke Niner says Truba gonna be indeed be a dick. There you go. I know Devils fans weren't the biggest fan of him. I actually like Truba. I think he's a really good guy. I met him a couple times at Rangers practice a number of years ago, but he was nice to us media folk. But I could see him being a different case on the ice with the elbow and the chicken wing and everything like that. That game against the Wild, he played great. He had a hit on 2 Wild players. Yes, I remember that. That was really good game from him. Dime Season says, and then we're going to wrap this up. I tweeted about this, but Palat only having 1 point while being on that line, and it didn't even come from them. It was a power play 2 point. That's right. That's a good freaking point, Dime Season. Yeah, it's pretty hard to only come away with 1 point, especially when you're on that line, and how well it's looked this season. The freaking passes that those 2 guys make has been nothing short of amazing. So yeah, but that'll do it, guys. We're gonna wrap up here. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Speaking of the Devils, we got to get back to some of these winning streams. Maybe the Devils will right the ship when they go back home and play the Montreal Canadiens on. Is that Tuesday? I think that's Tuesday, right? Let's see. Oh man, I always like fumble this. Thursday. Holy crap! I have a nice little I got a nice little week off here. Not really, but like, it's a nice little break here. All right, we're gonna go live tomorrow though. Monday Q&A, Monday mailbag. So come ask me anything. Come ask me anything you want. I think last time, no, that was after a game we talked about like Waffle House and stuff like that. Um, come ask me anything you freaking want tomorrow. I will answer all your questions, and we'll have a good time. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Bye bye.